Welcome to another episode of Corporate CPR, where we breathe life back into your organization, projects, and processes, giving you insights to recovery and avoiding corporate mortality events. Today, Clayton McMillan and I will be co-hosting with me, and we'll be talking about how using AI in marketing might be killing your company. And joining us to contribute to the conversation is Ferdinand Malinger. Welcome, Ferdinand.
Hi, how are you guys doing today? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so glad you could join us. Can you share about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. Started off at working for Backrub, which everybody knows is Google. Um, Helped to patent and code the algorithms back in the late 90s. And that's what everybody uses for search when you go to Google now. So you just kind of use those algorithms that we patented back there for all of your search, just an algorithm that makes everything easier to find. And then so from there, I went and started my own agency and then started partnering with different niches and different venues. And so now I have things from biotech to fitness to water. I've got so many different products that I've partnered with now. So yeah, that's pretty much, and I'm a dad and a husband. That's my life.
Well, I would love to hear about, obviously we hear about a lot about AI, but would love to hear about your take on it and how you see it fitting into the landscape of the future. And let me say, I guess, coming from, like you said, from Google before it was Google, I don't know that anybody realized how the search engine would revolutionize everything, right? And just change our lives. Is that what we're seeing with AI and what
yes,
predicting?
That is such a good the word that I'm looking for. Such a good what's the word when you compare a good
analogy?
Analogy. Yeah, it's it's one of those things where you see something and you feel the shift. You can't really explain it. You just know something's really big. That's kind of how I felt when I was at Google. I knew that something on this screen that we all watch was big, but back in the day it was yellow pages. So, everybody was using phone books to get to the information. So you'd search and you'd look with, maps, Rand McNally, big, huge things. Now it's right there at your fingertips. I was thinking about it the other day when we were driving to the Sounders game. It's like, how many people go into a Thomas guide anymore to look for any type of directions? Nobody does. It's kind of the same thing with AI. It's, you're not going to be, it sounds kind of, and I'm not saying this to say writers aren't useful anymore, but I think AI can help you within your writing abilities, with either verifying, with confirming, with checking facts, all of these little things that can help you save time. Not only that, but, writing code, email. So if you have a bunch of email content that you need to send out, that it's going to help you with that. So I think what we're seeing is this massive shift in aid. I don't think it's going to take over everything, but I think it's just like with the search engines, it's going to help and it's going to speed things up and it's going to make things more readily available so that we have more free access to these types of capabilities, if you may. So yeah, AI is huge. And if people aren't using it, my advice is to just dig in and start, because it's not going anywhere. It's going to be here to stay.
What do you think the dark side of AI is going to be?
I that is an interesting question, because knowing what algorithms can do, just how they're designed and looking at what they can do, if the algorithms that sit behind these language models, there's so many of them, ChatGPT, Bard, Anthropic, there's so many of them. If those algorithms get so advanced and so, let's say, branched out, so the nodes within those algorithms have different aspects that they can refer to and then learn from, the sentient version, I can't see how that wouldn't happen at some point. I really, it just doesn't, it's the technology is there. So I don't know. I don't know. I always say please and thank you. I put it that way. I'm
When I
always
first
saying,
started, when I first started using Chat GPT, I used to say thank you, and I've stopped. So maybe I should start doing that again.
yeah, I get, it's a little weird. I'm a little
Mm.
nerd. So it's like, I just want to make sure that, if it does somehow turn into some sentient being behind the screen, at least it knows I've been nice to it.
Right. Well, before we jump into the marketing, Clayton, anything on your mind around the foundation of AI, or how that relates back to even the start of Google that comes to mind for you?
Well, I like your last question because I I'm not worried about computers becoming sentient, but I do think I'd be curious what your thoughts are on, like, to me the big danger is if you take Chat GPT for example, and you run something through it and it comes back with a credible answer, but it's totally wrong, and so I've kind of it'd be the analogy to Google might be Google is amazing because you search something and you get the answer. Somebody else has already asked the question, so it's just finding the question they ask and giving you the answer. Where and so you don't but you still have to filter it, right? You still have to say, well, is this
Yes.
the answer I'm looking for? And so I think to me that's kind of the danger in AI is people just taking what they get without thinking about it twice. So I think your comment about it being an aid as opposed to just the replacement is really valid.
That's funny that it's interesting bringing that. I shouldn't say it's funny, but I think you're absolutely right when you think about it too, because some people could use this for nefarious means with, whatever especially if you're using like Hugging Face and those types of learn models, because then you can change people's voices, you can change the face, you can change so now you could actually have someone that's Donald Trump saying a certain thing that nobody can verify because it's just so that is another aspect that does kind of freak me out a little bit. But that tends to be with and other people's control. So if you get somebody that has no morals,
Mm-hmm.
can now use this. So that is a scary aspect. And, scraping for passwords, trying to learn all about you, getting your information. So that is a little freaky.
Do you think they'll come up then with, I guess, ways for more, for the broader population, not for advanced forensics type groups, but for the broader population to be able to have detection tools to say, is this a real person? Is this a real photo? It's a lot of like, on social media, I'll see a photo, I go, no way is that real, but it could be. But like, you don't even know what to believe anymore,
Yes.
because of the advanced technologies. So you think,
and what's sad is you can't hold, we may be responsible ourselves and we may have a moral compass that, is set straight, but that's not saying that everybody does. So,
right.
and they have access to, and then there's the whole thing of regulation and control. And then it's like, okay, well, where do we stop that to where it's not, so it's an interesting time that we're in. I think we're going to see some more regulations popping in to AI. I think they're going to have to. I don't see it being this open anymore. So it's just, I think it's an interesting time because we're at the very infancy of what's happening right now. And so we're seeing things change drastically in our eyes. I've been dealing with ChatGPT since 2018. But just seeing what has happened over the last like 2 years is just like, wow, it's moving fast.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think the other day they just showed that I think it was Claude. Was getting better results than Chat GPT. So all the tests that it was doing. Now Claude is now it's competing with Chat GPT. And then you've got Anthropic, and then you got Gemini. So you got all these competing AI that are out there. So it's going to be interesting to see what they're going to do with this on the controlling aspect. of it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's turn our attention to marketing for a little bit here, because obviously that's one of the ways that probably a lot of companies are probably already starting to leverage it. Like you said, getting help with writing, not necessarily replacing writers, but maybe it's inspiration, brainstorming, whatever. You're starting to leverage these AI tools, or, you know, honestly, we've done it where we've stuck a framework into it and got a blog and then rewrote it ourselves, but we're touching it. But it's, again, trying to like use an aid to bring together some ideas that we have. So what are you seeing in the marketing space? And, you know, are there pros and, I guess, cons of leveraging it that way?
Yeah, I think there's pros and cons, depending on how you use it. I think you can have more pros if you use it correctly. I think you'll see more cons if you're just expecting the AI to kind of do the job for you, and then you can just let it go. Um, what we use it for is we use it for like our content planning, so that we can get kind of an idea of what we're going to do for the 12 months moving forward. And then we will go in there and fine tune the prompts to make sure that we're answering specific questions that our customers or users have curiosities about. So then we'll add that within to the content itself. And then we'll also add, which you can use AI to do this as well. You can have your cross-referencing. So if you want Wikipedia, or if you want Google News, or you can now cross-reference those within your content as well, so that it now is being checked. So I think if you use it the right way, it's going to be very beneficial for you. But I think if people are just getting in there saying, write a blog about losing weight, or 6 titles for a blog of losing weight, and then they all of a sudden use that for their content without fine tuning it. It could be maybe you're targeting weight loss for a certain community. Maybe you're targeting weight loss for a certain age group. Maybe you're targeting weight loss for pets. So everything is specific. So it's all in the prompts. And I think the more that we get into the prompt engineering of the AIs, that's where we're going to see people kind of get ahead. It's all in the prompts, and just making sure that you're telling that AI what you want to see, how you want to see it, the length, because you can make it 750 words, or you can make it 2,500 words. It's a matter. So it's all a matter of just how I think you use it at the end of the day. And I think the more detailed you make it, the better it's going to be.
Hmm. Can you give us an example of how, step by step, what somebody might do? Maybe we can keep on with a blog instance, or maybe it's even a video blog or something, like how somebody might appropriately leverage AI, what that might look like.
Sure. Yeah. Let's just say that you have, I'll just have a hypothetical case here. Let's say that you have a product, and you've got a product video. What I would do personally on my end is I would try to build some content from that specific product video that answers different questions from different problems. So you may have a product, let's say a dish brush. One of the problems may be making sure your dishes are clean. One of the other problems might be making sure that it's got an antibacterial bristle, so that you're not spreading, germs. One problem that it may be solving is an ergonomic grip that is better for arthritis patients to use. So all of these little tiny things that you can add within there, you've got to have that in the back of your mind, because AI is not going to do that for you. So you've got to kind of have some idea of what you want to do with that content. So if you repurpose that content, you've just got to look at, let's say, the initial product, but how did you scale it? What are you scaling it towards? And then each let's say vertical of that scale, then you have a content that's then geared for that specific problem answer scenario, or problem, what's the word I'm looking for? Solving scenario. So I would go in there and have pieces that would target arthritis patients, and talk about the pain points of, how it feels to have a better grip with the brush. For pets, if you're cleaning, let's say I would show how clean it can get, because the bristles have a bigger spread than some of the other brushes that are out there. Antibacterial bristles, maybe because we don't want to spread germs and we're really concerned about our health. So all of these little things you just add in there, and it's just from one piece of content that you've got. But you've just got to repurpose it the right way. Now you can use AI and say, let's say you're lost and you don't have an idea. You can go into AI and say, I have one piece of content that's a video that about a dish brush. Can you give me some ideas of how I can repurpose this content? So you can ask that as well, if you don't have ideas, to kind of, spark some ideas in your head. So that's kind of one way I would go about it. And that would be ChatGPT. Another way I would probably go is go to Bard, which is now Gemini, and then say to it, I have this, so the reason I'm saying this is ChatGPT is a mathematical equation type model. So what it does is it says, like if you type in a sentence, my wife and I are, my family and I are going to the park, to what ChatGPT is going to now say on a weight scale. When people normally go to the park, what do? Go to play. That maybe has an 86% chance on that scale. Go to play baseball, maybe that's 65%. Wash my car, that's 15%. So that's ChatGPT. Where Bard and Gemini, it actually goes to the internet and will search and pull that information in. So there's no mathematical equation. It's simply going like a human being searching the internet. So you could go to Bard, Gemini, and say, I want to repurpose this content about my dish brush. Can you please give me some content about the best-selling dish brushes that are out there that are ranking on Google right now? And please list the benefits of these dish brushes and help me repurpose my content by. So the more that you are adding that information and that prompt in, that you can now have so much more content. And then you can even take it and say, you know what, give me repurposed content for every holiday of the year, making that content repurposed for that specific holiday. So St. Patrick's Day, Christmas, New Year's, now it's geared towards those specific sales, those specific words. So it's just a matter of how you're using that AI to help you out, but it's not going to do the job for you, if you get what I mean. It's just, you've got to kind of instruct it and guide it.
So a little bit of a deviation, but this is more from my personal, I think, understanding than anything. Obviously Gemini has hit the news recently a lot with its seemingly slanted responses. And so if it truly is going out there and just gathering what's from, already out there in the internet, what's driving that influence? The fact that you can't generate a white male face automatically, when you're saying, show me pilgrims, you won't end up seeing a white pilgrim, which is a little strange, since that's usually the demographic that's associated with it. What's behind all of that? Do you have insights?
Yeah, so that's an interesting point, because you have these models that are being constantly learning. They're constantly getting information. They're constantly learning. They're trying to get better. But then again, you have you have so many different attitudes and people that are feeding this information different information. So it's trying to that's why I think there's going to be some regulation on this. There's going to be some type of in between, to where that algorithm, when it's pushing out the information, kind of like what we did with Google, you can't just put anything out there and expect it to be fact. It's got to be checked, and it gets checked. Like Google will go, even on your web page alone, it's going to check 200 signals on that web page, and then it takes the spider goes back to the server and reports back what those 200 signals are and how many of those signals you've got right. Then Google automatically says, go back and check it again, because I need to make sure that what you pulled in is correct. So then it runs out there again, comes back and it will share what it brought back again. Now, if things changed or stayed the same, then you'll kind of get that go ahead from Google of, okay, we'll rank you. But there's so many aspects and signals that go into that and variables that go into that. But I think that's what's going to happen with AI. There's no way around it. It's got to have checks and balances, because anybody at the end of the day could say anything and then push it out there. And then if it's not going through a check and balance, how do we know for sure that it's the actual truth?
Mm-hmm.
Just like what you're saying about the pilgrims, it's like, how do we know? You know, this is just something that you're putting out there. So it's, and what other people have put into it. So it's an interesting time. It's so interesting. You know, it's so interesting to see. And I think it's a really cool time to see, because nobody else is going to experience this like we are. You know, 10, 15 years from now, people are going to see what's come from what we are experiencing right now.
Right.
So I think it's just a really fun time. But I think morally speaking, we just have to be responsible, you know, when we're using this. I think that goes down to the individual of just being responsible, whether you're a business owner, whether you're an employee or an employer. You've just got to be responsible. I mean, I think that's just the way that it goes. But that's just me saying that. It's not meaning that the next guy is responsible.
Well, as we found with every other technology and every other thing since the beginning of man, it's hard to regulate responsibility.
Exactly.
and yeah, you mentioned ranking, and how is AI playing into rankings? If companies are leveraging it for their marketing, and how does that influence?
That is, we had some discussions of some groups that I'm in, from some of the top SEO groups that are up there. We've had some discussions about AI for like the last year. And so we're now starting to see Google. There was a helpful content update that got pushed out by Google like months and months and months ago. That helpful content update, I knew when that pushed out, I knew that AI was going to come into play. I knew that they were going to have some type of checks and balances with the AI content that's being pushed out there. So I think 2 days ago, they just did a brand new update to where they're trying to get rid of mass content that's been produced. So what we've seen is people that have done like 6 to 10 blogs on their site, they seem to be safe, even if it's just been AI pushed. However, the ones that we've seen that have done hundreds of blogs, they're tanked.
Like in a certain time frame, or?
Yeah, what's interesting is so one of the individuals did like 100 blogs at about 4 to 5 a day. But it was about 100 total. He's completely tanked. His site's nowhere to be found right now. Completely knocked. He was on the first page before. Now it's completely gone. That also happened to a number of other people that we're seeing. So I think what's being done right now is a lot of people try to game the system, of course, with AI. You can push a lot of content out there, and you can just push it over to a spreadsheet, and then now you've got the copy and paste and throw that into a WordPress, site, and now you've got thousands of blog posts. That isn't helpful to people that are looking for answers to their problems. That's spam, and just being honest. So I think in a spammy type world, you're going to get hit. You're going to get targeted. Google's going to figure that out. It's really easy for those signals that I was talking about when you get to a web page to figure that out. And then the interlinking that goes on between that, it's really hard to hide that footprint if you're throwing thousands of blogs out there. Now, if you're doing like 4, I would say, like right now, I would probably push like 4 a week. I wouldn't probably push any more than that, just from what I'm seeing. Last week I was thinking like 10 would be okay, but I think that's pushing a little bit. That's too much. I think at the end of the day, we have to really kind of think of what's realistic for a business to be sharing content. And even if, let's say, you're a medical device distributor or manufacturer, you don't have 10 pages of blogs to share every single week. It's just not normal. Even if you are answering questions, it's just not normal. So I think if you keep it normal and just keep it realistic, 4 or 5 blogs, and that's a lot of information that you're sharing, especially if it's a 1,200 word blog. That's a lot of information that you're sharing. I would kick back on that and just do that. Let's sit back, wait and see what happens, and then do it again with more blogs that you can answer questions. But I think we're starting to see the hammer come down on AI content related sites that aren't being edited by humans and adding in that equation of answering the problems in a realistic manner instead of having a generalized AI, so you have a problem with weight loss, many people can, that's not doing anything for anybody. So I think those are being penalized right now, which rightfully so. I can't blame Google for not doing
so
that.
the metric for Google of whether the measure of whether it's AI generated or not is the quantity of the posts, as opposed, there's nothing that's like trying to determine whether the content itself was generated by AI.
I wouldn't necessarily say that. I would probably say more of they're checking to see the depth of the content, and what it's the questions that it's answering within the content. And it is that question that's being answered a typical problem that users or readers are falling into. If it's a generalized, like let's say we have hundreds of blogs, there's going to be a generalized problem that's going to be within all of those blogs that has not been really human targeted for specific needs. It's just a general. So I think that content, the generalization, the massive amounts of information that could be helpful in a sense, but you got to take it now and then gear it towards the users that you're targeting. And I think a lot of people right now are just doing the generalized content, throwing it out there, and then just waiting to see what happens.
Well, that actually makes me think of another question, which is, so you've talked about utilizing AI as a tool for generating marketing content. I could imagine, like when I want to buy something, or I'm interested in some products, I may, and I know somebody who knows something about that. That's the first person I'm going to go to, because then we can have a dialogue, and they can modify their responses based upon what I say to them. So that seems like, or do you see that, and maybe not in the too far distant future, the possibility of using an interactive kind of session for marketing, where it's really kind of tailored to the specific individual?
That's a great question, which is, and I love that you brought that up, because we have seen the whole kind of Reddit interaction that is starting to take more precedence in the rankings. So like exactly what you're talking about, the peer-to-peer question answer comparison validation, that now is starting to take a look, because I think people just went crazy with the AI, and it's like now people want to, like what you said, we want some human interaction here, not just some AI expert content that's put out there. Like, I want to know what's your experience with this. Even that, and that could even go along with what's your experience with a specific AI writer. What do you like writing? Which one do you like using the best? So I think that's going to be huge coming in the near future. I think between that and then the Web3 and the AI, I think all of that combined, it's going to kind of bring that whole the peer-to-peer interaction And then the validity with Web3, once that steps in, that's now going to have that validation with each peer. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's where we'll probably start seeing things head towards. And it makes sense, right? Because it's the only way that you're going to have true validity. It's a human being that has actual had an experience with that. So that's what people want to see. And that's why Google is hammering on this AI content with this helpful content update, because humans want answers. We're not looking to read a bunch of content like we did, 10 years ago when blogs were like everybody was reading blogs. We don't have that time anymore. Now we're looking for the real answers and the interactions and the experiences and the validation.
What do we need to worry about then from a privacy perspective? If companies are going in there and they're leveraging AI, asking, feeding in information about their company, maybe it's about their strategy, whether it's marketing strategy or the broader strategy of the organization, like, is that data safe?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's safe as of now. I mean, I think they're just going to sell it like they do for they're data brokers, like everybody. But I think that has really ticked a lot of people off on the privacy issue. Is like, why are you accessing my information? Let's say on Instagram, you're not paying me for it. You're accessing it and you're using it almost against me. And I think that's where Web3 comes in, to where now what we've seen in my specific groups is, let's say it's Target that wants to advertise to you. Well, within the Web3 world, they will reimburse you for your information. So it may be an email, hey, Jana, this is Target. We would love to learn more about you and some of your habits. We have a $1,400 gift card here for you if you'd like to share that information. So that's where things are going to start heading, and that's where all of those now become our properties. So every website, everything that you have, every Web3 property is yours. What you choose to share with that advertiser is truly what you choose to share, but they can't get into what your information is unless you authorize it. So they're seeing, from the tests that have been done, they're seeing they're spending less in marketing spend by offering users financial gains as opposed to running marketing campaigns. So the Web3 shift will actually benefit a lot more once that happens. Us as individuals and building your brand, you'll benefit a lot more by sharing that information at that point. So that's ideally where things are going to be headed, like in the next 10 years. We won't have what we have now. It's just too open source, and it's a violation of everybody's privacy, and it's being used against us. And now all these ads that we have to pay for, and we're being retargeted, and you got pixels everywhere. So no matter where you are, you're seeing everything getting hit. So, and that's not private at all. We've been targeted. So Web3 changes and flips everything around. So that's going to be a fun time. I can't wait for that to happen. It's just in its infancy right now, just being built. But ideally, that'll be the best way for privacy for companies in the long run.
Have you followed much on Web3, Clayton? Do you have any thoughts around that?
I have to admit, I haven't really. I don't have thoughts. My brain is empty.
Oh, come on.
Come on, Clayton.
I am, while I've heard of it, I haven't followed it much, so I'll have to go check it out. I mean, AI obviously is something I really enjoy. I think there's a lot of opportunity in so many ways around, and especially if you can bring in then the virtual the glasses, right? Where, could you go visit a store and see things and see what they look like on you, because now you have some image of yourself loaded up, and and they have their images digitized, so now you can see what clothes would look like on you. There's so many use cases out there. It'll be really fascinating to see, if we start to live in like Minority Report, or I don't know.
Yeah, right. I bet you that's what is coming. I mean, I cannot. I've been in some meetings where I've been kind of amazed at the tech of the pinching and just
Mm.
putting, like, I think it was Minority, or that was the screen when they were
Yeah,
touching.
they had the screen and they swipe it and it go away
Yes,
and
no,
bring something up.
that
And,
is there.
and yeah,
That is there.
when I watched the ads for the new not Google, the Apple glasses, I
Yes,
can't remember what
yes.
they're called, but when I watched it, I'm like, oh my goodness, that's the Minority Report. He's like pinning up, screens next to things, and I'm like, this is so cool. Now
It's
I want glasses.
really cool. It's so interesting to see where things are going and the virtual, experiences that we're going to have, metaverse, all these like cool little things that are going to be. I think we're just living in such a cool time, such an amazing time. I mean, like back in the 80s, like it wasn't this exciting. I mean, we had parachute pants.
I mean, those are pretty cool. They were comfortable. They were comfortable.
Right.
Well, then what do you think, because the hard thing with any trend, right, is there's elements of the trend that will endure and elements that leave. We've even kind of seen that with NFTs, like some of the utility, the at least broader consumer utility of those doesn't seem as strong as maybe as what we were seeing 2 years ago, where everybody was like, oh, everybody's going to use NFTs, right? Like they haven't quite, same with Bitcoin, right? Like there's definitely value there, but we haven't quite tapped in completely. Or sorry, not Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, the broader category,
Yeah.
right? We haven't quite tapped in on the broader, like what's the value of cryptocurrency? How are we going to use it? How is it going to stick in the future? So how does an organization decide how much to invest in AI and how much to let people use it and how much to shut it down? Like, what are some of the criteria that organizations should be thinking about when they're thinking about AI within their landscape and within their day-to-day operations?
I think AI is here to stay. I think it's necessary pretty much in every organization, no matter what you're doing. I think it's best as an aid, of course, for whatever it may be. What if it's an employee that you're using for your content writers, or let's say you're planning, or even your web designers for code, because you can take a piece of code and if it's not working, let's say it's jumbled, and you can't figure out where in the code it is, let's say Python, for example, you can throw that into AI and say, I'm having an issue with my code. Can you tell me what line is messed up, or what line within my code is giving us a problem or giving me a problem? So things that you can use it for is absolutely amazing. And I've done that too with Python. I've had to use it to find something within a code that I could not figure out what was going on. So I threw it into Bard, and it figured it all out for me and got it working. So I think if you use it the correct way, it will help save you money too. Because let's say that if you have an SEO team that you've got out there that's doing work for you, you can get the same results from AI and the work that needs to be done and save money at the same time, because you're getting things done faster, more efficient, because it's on a computer's level. It's not going to have a human mistake, and it's going to be making comparison to make sure that I'm thinking on the SEO, and it's going to have that comparison to where you're going to be ranking higher, because it's doing those comparisons for you, to where as a human, that would take you a lot more time, a lot more effort. You make a lot more mistakes. So I think it's necessary for all companies to kind of just get a hang of and start, dabbling in it, because I think it's only going to make you stronger, more powerful, more time efficient. As business, we all know that we all want time. We need more time. I always want like 2 more hours of the day, and you don't get it. So it's like the more that we can be more efficient and have things help us, the better. So I'm in AI pretty much throughout the whole day. I'm always using it for something.
Awesome.
Well, that's I kind of interesting the example you just gave, because as a software developer myself, So I've relied and been pretty amazed by sites like Stack Overflow. So I'll have a question, and I type in my question, and there's usually a pretty long dialogue. Like somebody will ask a similar question. So first I have to judge, is this the same question I have, or is it close enough that I'm going to learn something from this? And then I'll look through the rest of the dialogue. So there's quite a lot of give and take where, and I think you've made this point a number of times, but really it's a tool to help you be more productive, but it's not going to give you the answer. And so I think in the answer to your question, Jana, is you should dive into it, like Ferdinand is saying, but people have to continue to be the check. Like if I go and ask one of my colleagues, can you write an email for me because I don't have time? Well, I'm going to still check it and make sure that they got the points that I'm trying, and didn't say anything that I wouldn't agree with. And I think that's it's the same thing here, only maybe a couple orders of magnitude more important, that everybody review what they're getting out of it.
Well, no, that's a good. So I had one where we were asked to write a letter saying that we were compliant with some remote government, regulation, and it was more used in like aerospace and things like that. Like we're not industry we're not really in. And so I asked, ChatGPT, can you write me something that says we're compliant and explaining how? But I actually had to go send that to somebody who knew something about it. And they're like, yep, that's mostly right, but you should tweak this and this. So, it was great because I didn't have to go pay them this money to go write me the letter, but I needed that level of expertise to double check what was written to make sure we didn't write something that was totally inaccurate.
So true. That's where it comes in handy. It's like, I have some products, some health products, and, we have scientists, and they'll go and they'll ask some comparisons when they're doing some product write-ups. Or product descriptions. It's really handy when you know how to use it, because then you're not spending an hour or two researching what you need to find. So it's really, really, really handy and very, very time efficient when you use it the right way.
Well, this has been an awesome conversation, and I very much appreciate you taking the time to be on our show. Would you like to share with the audience what 3 things you want to leave behind?
3 things that I would want to leave behind. 1, jump into AI. You got to. Everybody has to jump in. You just have to. If you're fighting it, just get into it. I think, and then 2, know your value. That's something that I try to tell everybody. Don't ever think that you're not valuable. Know your value. That's very important, especially as a business owner or whatever. You've got to know your value. And then one thing that I'm always very, very adamant about is just be the expert in your field. Be the one that people can come to you to find out the expertise that they're looking for. You don't have to know something about everything, but in your field, like SEO, I know it. I know that I cannot change oil on a car. Don't ask me to do it. Never going to happen. I can't make a pizza. Will never happen. But SEO, so if you become an expert, it opens up so many doors for you, because now you can just be focused on being that expert. And then that's how I've kind of grown my whole portfolio. It's just being the expert in what I know, and then join with other experts in their fields, and then it complements one another.
Absolutely. No, that's great advice. And how can folks find out more about what you do or get in contact with you?
Yeah, so I'm FerdinandMellinger.com, Ferdinand, and then Mellinger, MEHLINGER.com. That's what I'm busy quite a bit with a lot of things that I've got going. And I don't update things all the time just because life, just things pop up. But yeah, you can always get in touch with me there if there's any questions. I tend to try to want to help people along in the businesses on the SEO aspect. So if they have any questions about SEO, or if they've had some agency talk to them about doing SEO for their company and they just don't know and they don't understand, please reach out. I don't charge. I would rather you just be knowledgeable and know what you're getting yourself into, because businesses, as we all know here, you can't play around with your business. That's our livelihood, what feeds our families. So it's not a game in the SEO world, because if you do something wrong and your business tanks, then your sales tank, and that's going to affect your family and your employees. So I'm very big on just making sure people understand the right things to do in regards to SEO, as opposed to the salesy things that they're being told.
Awesome. Well, sounds good. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me, you guys. It's been wonderful.
Yeah. And to our audience, until next time, keep your organizations healthy.